Welcome to a bonus episode of Just Another Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is going to be a fun one. Just a quick, small episode to talk about some comic books that I like to talk about. So I started this podcast to do things that I wanted to do, and one of them was comic books. So this little bonus one will be featured around The Walking Dead, hence my little bobblehead. Actually, they're actually not bobbleheads. No, none of them are bobbleheads of The Walking Dead. These are Rick, Ezekiel, and Negan Funko Pops. If you're watching, so this episode is going to be based around The Walking Dead Deluxe, the reissue of The Walking Dead. So The Walking Dead ran for 15 years on Image Comic Books, created by Robert Kirkman. It's now on TV as well, and those episodes are starting to get dwindled down because season 11 is their final season on TV. But there's different spin-offs and various shows that are coming and movies that are coming, so it's pretty cool. Robert Kirkman abruptly ended The Walking Dead with issue 193 in 2019, opted to just stop the series, kind of tied some ends up and put a little bow on it and said, this is it, I'm done. He did it abruptly, literally abruptly, very, very, very surprisingly. I went to pick up the issue at my local comic book shop, and I didn't realize it was the last one until I got there, basically. So it's pretty cool little thing to have it. It was a bonus big issue, charged the same amount, the $3.99 that he was charging before for the comic book. But so fast forward now, we're into 2020. And there's no more Walking Dead comic books that are coming out. So they come out with a new thing called Walking Dead Deluxe. It is a colorized version of it. So to go back a little bit, The Walking Dead, again, started now 16 years ago in 2004 when the comic book was released. The covers were in color, but the insides were black and white. And so the original reasoning was that Robert Kirkman had never had a comic book that went past 4 or 5 issues. And so he thought if it's cheaper to make, then maybe they will let him get past that 4 or 5 issue comic book. It's a very hard industry to get into. And so he thought, if we do black and white, there we go. Save some money on printing and so on. Plus, thinking back on it, he said it looked a lot more like the George Romero and Night of the Living Dead, how they kicked off the zombie genre back in the day. So he thought it was in black and white. Maybe this would be kind of cool too. So when I started reading The Walking Dead, it wasn't in 2004. It was many years after that. Picked up the compendiums, read the graphic novels, and so on. So when I read it, I saw the black and white. It actually gave this more like post-apocalyptic, like cool atmosphere behind it. So that it was like not your typical colorized comic book. So it's like it feels empty and it feels alone. And so it was kind of cool to see that. But when I heard they were colorizing the image of the original comic books, I thought this is pretty cool. And so I got hooked, and I'm going to collect them as well. They're coming out twice a month. The new ones, The Walking Dead Deluxe. They are colorized by Dave McCaig. It's hard to say. McCaig. They created a new logo. I'll put the images up. I'm showing them with the actual comic book right now, but I'll put the images up on the screen too for anybody who's watching on YouTube. The color, they have the new logo on the top. It's full color. The old comic books had a color cover, but it was a different cover. This one features a more, gritty cover compared to the original one that Tony Moore did back in the day. But it also, issue 1 came with 4 other or 5 other additional covers by various artists, and that will be continuing in the twice a month that they come out with these new comic books or re-release of these comic books in color. So they'll have one issue, cover A, done by Charlie Adler and Dave McCaig, whatever you want to say it, and that's the original cover. And then they'll come up with other variant covers that go along with it that you'll get, which collectors like myself love and cost us a lot of money. Then the other thing that will come out in the new versions is each issue will include a titled area called the cutting room floor. It will feature Robert Kirkman's handwritten notes, plots, commentary, abandoned storylines, abandoned plot points, and so much more. So that'll be additional at the end of the comic book of each issue. So it's adding a little bit more oomph to the actual comic book. For diehard Walking Dead fans, it adds a little bit more knowledge in the back end. Like, oh, this is kind of cool. This is how it's done. He did a list of how he was paging out his story and crossing off things and reordering things and changing things, and which is pretty cool. In Walking Dead issue number 1, deluxe issue number 1, he actually put in there the original like a sample that he gave the Image to try to sell them on the comic book. Some of the characters' names were different. It was more of a weird horror movie initial issue. If you haven't read The Walking Dead, I won't want to spoil it for you, but the beginning of this comic book in Walking Dead number 1 is different than he had actually originally written Walking Dead number 1. That's all information that I didn't know, and I'm a Walking Dead fan, so it was really cool to see those things in the back end of the comic books that I'm not, used to seeing. And it made me want to read it again. So, and B, want to collect it again. So I was obviously not able to get issue number 1. Issue number 1 goes for thousands of dollars now, and that I don't have to spend on comic books. And so now I have issue number 1 of Walking Dead Deluxe, which is pretty cool, and all the variant covers. I also have issue 2 came out as well, with all the variant covers as well. And then I have, not in front of me right now, but I was able to purchase the one per store variant gold foil version of issue number 1 from Paul at Galactic Comics in Bangor. So, my take on my review and the entire idea of coming out with The Walking Dead Deluxe is awesome. I think it's another look at the entire comic book series. I think that, it gives you more depth to the comic book that you didn't maybe have before. The comic book is a pretty gory comic book. It's based around zombies, walkers, roamers, whatever you want to call them. And so the gore is kind of silenced a little bit with black and white, but the gore comes out a little bit more in color, which is really cool. If you have not read The Walking Dead, this is an opportunity for you to get in on the ground floor and read the whole thing over again. What I will say is there's no plan, and I believe, and I honestly trust that he's right about this, is Robert Kirkman won't put the color versions of them into compendiums or collected editions like he did with the original ones. I think that it's going to be issue by issue. I mean, so we're 2 issues in. Issue 3 comes out Wednesday, November 18th. So if you're looking to read The Walking Dead and have debated back and forth, this is a good opportunity to do it, because you can read the color version of the comic book, which has turned the black and white turned people off in the past. That's what I've heard. The cool thing is, and one of the last things I'll say about this quick bonus episode reviewing The Walking Dead Deluxe is, I read all of The Walking Dead, and then COVID hit. I've read it a couple of years ago, but COVID hit, and I was trying to find something that I could read because comic books weren't being produced anymore and distributed to comic book stores, hence the lockdown and all that stuff. And so I was like, oh, what can I read that is continuous that I can read for a while, because I feel like we're going to be home for a while. And I was like, oh, 193 issues of The Walking Dead. Let's reread that. And then maybe I could watch the TV show to go along with it, and so on. I read the whole 191 through 193. Again, finished a couple months ago, loved it, really enjoyed reading it again. There's points that you forget that were on the TV show that weren't in the comic books, and the opposite, things that were in the comic books that weren't in the TV show. And there's other things that I thought were only on the TV show that actually I forgot were in the comic books, and that just came to light reading these comic books again. So once I got Walking Dead number 1 and 2 of the Deluxe, I was like, okay, let me start reading those again, because they're in color. I want to see what they're like. And now I'm addicted again. So then I started reading 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and so on of the black and white versions. It's such a riveting and good comic book. I think Robert Kirkman is such a great writer that it makes it so interesting to read. And it also makes you think, if there's not zombies per se, but if the world were to end and during this COVID time, we're thinking about this, what would you do to protect your family, your friends, the people you get to know in the post-apocalyptic world? And The Walking Dead, I feel like, does a good job of saying what's right, what's wrong, where's the lines blended in the middle because of the situation we're in. And so I love the idea of rereading it. So my goal now, and I'll explain it to you, is I read 1 in color, I read 2 in color, then I started reading 3 in black and white and so on, because 3 hadn't come out yet. I will reread 3 again in color again when it comes out on Wednesday, and then continue reading the black and white to go along with it. And then when the new one comes out, I'll read those as well. So it's kind of a cool, I get to actually read it for, 3 times in 2020, or start into 2021 probably. But the idea is that I get to read the black and white and the color, see the differences, see the comparisons, and so on. And maybe, 15, 16, 20 issues in, I'll do another one of these to say, hey, was it good? Was it bad? So on. I'll give you more tidbits about the cutting room floor. and so on. Now I'm also on season 6 or 7 of the Walking Dead TV show, so I am progressing in that as well. Started watching that again during COVID, like I said. We're at the Negan episode where he comes out, which is pretty cool. One of my favorite episodes. And you can learn more about my favorite villains in Marvel, in comic books when we talk with Paul Eaton of Galactic Comics on the next poll list, because that will be a villains-based one. I'll give you a little tidbit. Negan is on that list. So my review, thinking back on it, Walking Dead Deluxe is worth the money. It is worth collecting. Don't collect these based on the idea that they're going to be worth a bunch of money. They're technically just reprints of the same original comic book. There may be specific issues that are first appearances of certain people, or like issue number 1, for an example, is the first issue of this series. It won't get to $1,500, $2,000 like issue 1 of the original series goes. That's mainly because there was a lot more printed of Walking Dead Deluxe as there was the original issue. But here and there, there's certain first appearances in color and all that stuff may become more of a collected edition. Or if the number of people buying them goes down, they start printing a little bit less, and then it spikes back up again. Those ones that are printed a little less might be worth a little bit more. So in the speculation market, I wouldn't say that the collecting comic books for the Walking Dead Deluxe is going to be a moneymaker. But if you want to collect something that's going to continue on for 193 issues and be able to go to the comic book store on Wednesday every other week or so and grab your next edition and to continue to collect an entire issue, a series of something, the Walking Dead Deluxe will let you do that. You don't have to buy all the different variant covers, but you can buy the cover A. But yeah, just check your local comic book store to see what they have available. If you're living in the Bangor area, Paul from Galactic Comics gets the Walking Dead Deluxe twice a month, like I was mentioning. One's already saved for me because I'm collecting them, but there'll be other ones available. So that's my review. I think it's worth it. I think it was great. I think it's an awesome idea. I think they have a way to reinvigorate maybe some of the Walking Dead fans that lost the connection when the TV show kind of went weird ways and stuff, and people who didn't get to read the original Walking Dead back in 2004 because it was such a small, independent, comic book. But Image, Skybound, Robert Kirkman re-releasing these done the right way, which is pretty cool. Pretty excited. So I'm excited for issue number 3 on Wednesday, November 18th. But this is I have issue number 1 and 2 available now. But yeah, so I really appreciate you guys listening. I thought I just want to get this out there and say that it's really worth reading The Walking Dead Deluxe on Image Comic Books. You can check them out at your local comic book stores every other week, or basically twice a month. Weeks that are 5 weeks in a month, or months that are 5 weeks in a month, and maybe a little different. But every other week, most of the time, to get The Walking Dead Deluxe. Issue 3 comes out Wednesday, 11/18. And I give it 2 thumbs up and a star and A+ and 2 mugs of beer. I don't have a rating system. I'm just telling you what I like. So Walking Dead Deluxe, go get it. Worth it. Enjoy it. Thanks a lot for listening. This is just another podcast. I'm Justin Soderberg. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Those are the main ones to get our podcast on. If you do listen to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us 5 stars. It really helps with the searching algorithms and all that stuff. Follow us on Spotify with the follow button. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts. Like our video on YouTube. Give us a little thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel. Visit our website, justanotherpodcast.com. I'm your host, Justin. Again, thanks for listening. Enjoy life.